Ahead on America This Week, United We Stand.
We're going to have cheap oil, cheap gas, no terrorism. This is all good for America.
Former Trump administration Deputy National Security Advisor KT McFarland joins me. Plus, we're breaking down both campaigns.
A middle-class man who connects with the American people and cares about this country. I think that's the Joe Biden we deserve. I think that's the Joe Biden we're going to see.
You won't want to miss my conversation with the former Deputy National Press Secretary for the Democratic Party, Jose Aristimuño.
The really defining issue of this entire campaign in every state is going to be who do voters trust to return the economy to where it was.
And with the communications director for the Trump 2020 re-election campaign, Tim Murtaugh.
I actually do think at the end of the day, the scientific process will win.
Plus, pandemic expert Dr. Dina Grayson is back. That and so much more. Right now on America This Week, United We Stand. Welcome to America This Week, United We Stand. I'm Eric Bolling. In the past week, the president received not one, but two nominations for the Nobel Peace Prize, one for his work on the historic peace agreement between Israel and the United Arab Emirates, and the other for his work on the economic relationship between Serbia and Kosovo. Joining me now to discuss is former Trump administration Deputy National Security Advisor and author of Revolution, Trump, Washington, and We the People. Good friend, KT McFarland is back. Thanks for joining us, KT. Look, I watch this stuff and I see it, and people are just, they have so much Trump derangement syndrome out there, they just can't give the guy credit. This is something that presidents going back 50 years or longer, 50 years since Israel declared themselves a state. They've been trying to broker peace between Israel and the Arab nations. Tell us how important this is.
You know, I think it's even more important than the last 50, 70 years. I think this is the first agreement, a real agreement, peace agreement, between Israel, between Jews and Arabs in a couple thousand years. I mean, even before there were the tribes, got to the religion part of it. So the reason it's so significant is that previous presidents, Republican and Democrat, they always thought, well, they're going to start by solving the Middle East peace problem by starting with Israel and the Palestinians. And it was always a non-starter because the Palestinians didn't want peace. And they were bankrolled, really, by a lot of the wealthy Sunni Gulf Arab states as well as Iran. So they never wanted peace. So peace never happened. But President Trump, who's a deal guy, right? So he thought, okay, well, if we can't do it Israel-Palestinians, let's do it outside in. Let's go to the wealthy Gulf Arabs, get them to agree to peace with Israel, get them to cut off their funding for the Palestinians, and then eventually we'll get our way to Palestinian peace. And so that's what he's done. Now, the reason the Gulf Arab countries are willing to do it is because with American energy independence, which is a key part of this, they know they can't rely on oil exports to fund their governments for much longer. So they have to diversify their economies.
And KT, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I want our audience to really understand what's going on here. So the goal is to get peace within that Palestinian-Israel region, and maybe peace would spread out, but since that's not happening, Trump's trying to go around. Right. Is that a good strategy? I'm thinking you need the Saudis on one hand to get involved in this, and then you also need you know, the other faction, the Iranians, to get involved, and frankly, those two can't stand each other. There is so much bickering and fighting in the Mideast between different factions, Sunnis, you know, all the various factions of Muslims in the Middle East. Is this biting off too much? More than you can chew.
And Eric, it's a really important question because I would have, if you'd asked me a year ago, I probably would have said you're right, biting off too much. But it isn't, for the following reasons. Is because Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates, the two Sunni Gulf countries that are doing this, they would not be doing this if the Saudis hadn't already signed up to it. The Saudis are in the pipeline. They're going to agree. A number of other countries are going to come and join this agreement in the next couple of weeks and months ahead. Now, the important thing, though, is what you just mentioned, Iran. Now, Iran is not Arab, it's Persian. It is not Sunni, it's Shiite, a different brand of Islam. And the Iranians are the ones who caused a lot of the problems in the Middle East. And by doing this, by this peace agreement between the Sunni Arabs and Israel, by the lower price of oil, by squeezing Iran economically and getting out of the Iran nuclear deal. The Iranians, who were the world's greatest sponsor of terrorism, they can't be in that position anymore. They can't afford it. And when President Trump killed the leader of the Iranian terrorist network throughout the Middle East, Qasem Soleimani, that really devastated their ability to make war, particularly war against Israel. So I think that what you'll see now is the economics are going to take over. It's going to be a stampede for countries to try to do business with Israel. There are huge economic opportunities. And the telling thing, and Jared Kushner was the guy that figured this out, he went to the bankers of the Middle East, the money guys, and that's the United Arab Emirates, and that's Bahrain. By going to them first, he's cutting off the funding to terrorists, and he's going to make prosperity in the Middle East will happen much more quickly. They're all going to reinvest in each other, and it's going to be amazing.
And so our audience understands we're sitting here in America, across America, we're airing absolutely across this country, and why that matters to us. The dividend that's paid, the peace dividend is what it's called. KT, just gives about a half a minute or so. Explain to the American people the U.S. peace dividend from peace in the Middle East.
We've just fought 2 wars in the Middle East. We've been involved in the Middle East in wars, their wars, for 40, 50 years because we needed a supply of oil. We don't need to be in those wars anymore. We have our own oil. They're going to have peace. The second thing is we will now have low oil prices forever, low gasoline prices forever after. And then finally, peace in that part of the world means that we've just spent 20 years focused on the Middle East. How do we guarantee the supply of oil? How do we guarantee Israel's security? And it's been a large part of our national attention span, and that's where terrorism has sprung from. This isn't going to be the case anymore. We're going to have cheap oil, cheap gas, no terrorism. This is all good for America.
KT McFarland, everybody, always good to have you on the show.
Thank you, Eric.
Ahead on America This Week, United We Stand. The election is less than 50 days away, and swing states will play a crucial role. Why Florida, despite its past election mishaps, is now a political hotbed. Next.
United we stand, we never fall. This perilous fight, it takes one and all. Everyone stands, American strong. Strength by one equals strength by all. American values, American pride. Your neighbor needs you, each person, each time.
We stand, America.
United we stand.
We stand, America.
United we stand.
The election is less than 2 months away. In just a couple of minutes, we're going to take a look at strategies for both the Biden and Trump campaigns. Key swing states will decide the upcoming election. Florida is a must-win for President Trump, and Vice President Biden is expected to campaign there heavily. Jay O'Brien with our sister station, WPEC in West Palm Beach, explains why the state is a political hotbed.
Welcome to the land of beaches, waves, golf, and condos. Lots of condos. But Florida isn't just a place to vacation or retire. This swing state is crucial for President Trump and a place Vice President Biden is hoping to curb Republican momentum. The Republican strategy, visibility.
Enthusiasm wins.
Along with frequent Trump boat parades, sign-waving events like this one dot the state.
Trump supporters definitely have the heart, and there's so much enthusiasm that Biden's camp doesn't have.
Masks are optional, social distancing not required.
4 more years,
Republicans in places like Palm Beach County say they're taking COVID precautions, but haven't changed their campaigning much, still starting phone banks and going door to door.
This is Mark Harris.
Meanwhile, Mark Harris, a Democrat precinct leader, is making calls from home, socially distant, encouraging older voters to request mail-in ballots.
No, don't worry about that. That's hype.
They can't wait to vote. So based on that, now I don't know what the Republicans are feeling.
It's the seniors on the other end of Mark's phone that pollster Scott Rasmussen says are the key to winning this state and the White House.
Donald Trump is not doing as well among senior voters as he would like. The state is very much in play.
Rasmussen adds Biden is also seeing difficulties underperforming with key Hispanic voters in Florida.
If Biden can't overcome that deficit, he's not going to win the Sunshine State.
Both campaigns making it up with events and TV ads. Billionaire Michael Bloomberg just announced he'll spend $100 million to help Biden in Florida. Recent polls show a deadlocked race here in the Sunshine State. An NBC News Marist poll even shows Vice President Biden and President Trump tied in Florida. We asked President Trump, a resident of this state, about that in an interview last week. Are you concerned about potentially losing your home state?
No, as a Republican, to be tied is good. I won it last time with Hillary, who is a much more capable candidate than Biden.
Both Trump and Biden visited Florida just this last week, part of what is expected to be a string of campaign stops here as the summer sun cools and the fall ocean breeze blows toward Election Day. I'm Jay O'Brien reporting.
Thanks, Jay and WPEC for that story. Joining me now is the former Deputy National Press Secretary for the Democratic Party and political commentator Jose Aristimuño. Hola, Jose, ¿cómo estás?
How are you? All right. Thanks for having me.
The Harris administration. What's this all about? The Harris administration. Jose.
Look, I mean, it's a gaffe, right? Like anything else, right? Politicians make mistakes, right? I mean, are we really taking the time to look into this? I get it. The media's got to make things interesting, right? They got to have the headlines. Is Harris going to take over the Biden administration? All this drama. But you know, the time for soap operas are over, man. We're almost to this election. I think the American people deserve topics that they actually care about, not this nonsense about the Harris administration. I think it's silly. I think the whole thing is just it's another news day that it's not going to matter come election day.
Well, Kamala Harris, said Harris administration, clarified later in the thought, but so did Joe Biden. He said the Harris-Biden administration. Look, I agree with you. There's no conspiracy going on where they're gonna switch once they get into office. But I am concerned, and I've been talking about it for months, I am concerned about Joe Biden's mental acuity going on. He was in Michigan and mixed up Michigan with military numbers for COVID. Then he spewed some number that was absolutely incoherent. Jose, it's not unusual. He does this time and time again. If I'm the Trump campaign prepping him for debates, I'd throw numbers at Joe Biden like crazy and see what happens.
Look, I got good news for you. Debates are, a couple of weeks away. At the end of September, we'll have our first debate here, and we'll be able to put Joe to the test, right? Like, Republicans are dying to see him on debates because they are ready for him to fall. They're ready for him to mumble. They're ready. We're not going to see that Joe Biden. We're going to see the Joe Biden that we've known for years, a middle-class man who connects with the American people and cares about this country. I think that's the Joe Biden we deserve. I think that's the Joe Biden we're going to see in the debates. But let him do his thing, and we'll see. Let the American people be the judge.
A lot of people think that he, at the last minute, is going to pull some shenanigans, decide not to come to the debates for whatever reason. He may say, "Oh, COVID's bad there. I don't want to go."
I don't think so. He's going to debate. You and I have talked about this earlier, and I was more of the idea: don't debate Trump. I mean, why are you going to debate a liar? It's like arguing against a wall. Like, you're not going to get any points across. I mean, he's a bully. I mean, Trump is. It's not going to be very productive. But they're going to do it. They've announced it. Both parties have agreed. Both candidates have agreed. It's going to happen. Debates are going to happen, Eric. I'm as excited as you are. I got my popcorn ready. Let's get the show on the road.
Oh, yeah, 6-pack of beer and popcorn. Can't wait. Schlitz malt liquor, I think. Actually, I don't even know if that's still on board. Jose, are you not concerned? I've got about half a minute or so. Are you not concerned that Biden is not getting out there enough? He's not making. He's not fielding a lot of questions from reporters. Is that a concern of yours?
He was in Florida this week. He was talking to the Puerto Rican community. He was talking to military families. He's been out there, Eric. I mean, he's doing the job. He's being a candidate. I'm not. I mean, it's different that 4 years ago when you had non-COVID existence. It's different, but he's out there doing his job. I don't see that being a concern now.
All right. Well, a lot of other people do, and I did see him go to some cornfield somewhere in the Midwest, and decided when reporters were trying to ask him a question, he walked out of the cornfield. Like, here's your opportunity, Jose. About 10 seconds or less. You still got Harris, the Harris administration beating the Trump administration.
the Harris-Biden coming. Look, I can tell you, Biden, Harris, whichever last name you want to put first, we're going to take back the White House. That I know for sure.
Everybody, there's Jose Aristimuño, good friend of ours, good friend of the show. Jose, good luck.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Eric.
And from the other side of the aisle, we have the communications director for the Trump 2020 re-election campaign, Tim Murtaugh. Tim, thanks for joining us. So I want to talk with Medium, a company that tracks ad spending, television ad spending, reported that you've pulled back, you canceled a TV ad buy in states, Iowa, Ohio, and Nevada that was supposed to run this week. Can you tell us why you would have done that?
Those are reservations made a long time ago, and right now we feel really good about those states. And this is following the ad strategy that Bill Stepien, the campaign manager, has put in, and that is to track the calendar. 2020 is a different year, really, than any other election year. We know that more than half of the votes that'll be cast this year will be cast well before Election Day. So our ad strategy is tracking the calendar in those states that come online as early voting states right away. North Carolina, for example, voters have had ballots in their hands since September 4th. And so that's the way that our ad strategy is structured. But we have ramped up our ad spending up 50% higher this week than it was last week. We're very comfortable with where we are with our strategy. The president is out campaigning very aggressively, as you know, hitting a lot of key states. And we've also made contact over 102 million times by door knocks and phone calls with voters. So we're running a multifaceted, comprehensive campaign. If you look at Joe Biden's side, they're doing nothing but running television ads. And so Joe Biden has placed a really big bet on the idea that he can run for president strictly by buying TV ads. While on our side, we're running a comprehensive campaign with a candidate who's aggressive, an aggressive TV ad strategy, and also a very, very aggressive ground game. We like our strategy a lot better.
And Tim, let's talk a little bit about this because our viewers don't necessarily get this type of deep dive into the politics, into the nitty gritty. North Carolina, you mentioned. Ohio, you say you're doing well, so you pulled back some TV spending. Pennsylvania and Florida are must-wins for the president. Tell us where we stand, where you stand in Pennsylvania and Florida, and why.
Well, we're on TV in both of those states, and we feel very good about both of them. Florida, of course, is the president's home state. It's a state that he won in 2016. Very much intends to win Florida again. Our own data shows the president very strong in Florida. In fact, in all the battleground states, we survey 17 states, and in all of them, we show the president either tied or ahead, and Florida and Pennsylvania are definitely in that group. In Pennsylvania, we think that the president's message, and everywhere really, of a strong economy. He built the world's best economy once. He's already doing it a second time. And for Pennsylvania voters, how can Joe Biden go in there and look them in the eye and say that he cares about their jobs when his climate change policy is written by AOC? And it would wipe out all of the natural gas jobs, the fracking jobs in Pennsylvania. We're talking about over 600,000 Pennsylvanians who would lose their jobs under Joe Biden's energy plan. So that's an economic message that we think that cannot be beaten. And the really defining issue of this entire campaign in every state is going to be who do voters trust to return the economy to where it was before the coronavirus epidemic hit. And I think that President Trump wins that argument every single time, and it's not even close.
You see, I noticed you did that. You went back to the economy, Tim, and President Trump had closed the gap in many of these states. I have less than a minute. Based on the police, on law enforcement, and defunding the police on the left, are you moving that strategy from the police back to the economy? About half a minute.
Oh, no, certainly we're not getting away from that because that's still something that's going on in cities like Portland. President Trump is definitely the one who stands with police, stands for law and order, and stands with people who want peace in their communities. Joe Biden has shown over and over again he'll make excuses for the rioters who are burning down our cities and, in fact, blame police in some instances for inciting the violence as he did in Portland. So, no, that is entirely part of the president's message still. But again, the economy will be the defining issue. You can't have a revival of the economy, particularly in the cities that are on fire, until peace is restored. So those two issues really do go hand in hand anyway.
All right, we're going to leave it right there. Tim Murtaugh from the Trump campaign, thank you very much for joining us again.
Thanks for having me, Eric. I appreciate it.
Coming up on America This Week, United We Stand, I'm talking with pandemic expert Dr. Dina Grayson. And thanks to everyone who has donated to the Eric Chase Foundation. Every dollar is going to help fight against illegal opioids and drugs that are killing our children. Last week, I was given exclusive access to a U.S. drug offload where well over $500 million of cocaine seized from drug cartels while en route to our neighborhoods, our schools, and our workplaces was brought to port in San Diego to be destroyed by the DEA. I've been on the front line week after week to expose drug cartels and to show you the brave men, women, and even canines who are doing their part to stop the drugs from entering the U.S. But there's more work to be done. If you want to help in this critical fight, please go to ericchasefoundation.org. Your dollars will help parents and kids and hopefully save them the heartache of a deadly overdose. Together, we can save the lives of our most precious assets, our children. This week, the top donors, again, will get a signed copy of my book, Wake Up America. It's headed your way.
United we stand, we never fall. This perilous fight, it takes one and all. Everyone stands, American strong. Strength by one equals strength by all. American values, American pride. Your neighbor needs you, each person, each time.
We stand American strong.
United we stand.
We stand American strong.
City by city, state by state, town by town, stand American great. Everyone stands American strong. When strength by one equals strength by all.
American values, American pride. Your neighbor needs you, each person, each time.
We stand American strong.
United we stand.
We stand American strong.
United we stand.
America This Week, America's fastest growing political show, points out how rough and tumble politics shape opinion in every region in our country. We tell American stories, stories that touch our people, determine our politics, focus on the future of America.
I'm Eric Bolling. Join me for a fascinating look at America This Week.
And we're developing a vaccine in record time. It will be ready before the end of the year and maybe much sooner than that. They're very unhappy about that.
Earlier this week, the CEO of Pfizer announced the company vaccine could be available for distribution to Americans by the end of the year. Joining me now is pandemic expert. We're bringing back Dr. Dina Grayson. We've been talking about these vaccines back and forth, Dr. Grayson. There is a risk to rushing a vaccine, but I have to think that the people who are in charge of that type of thing aren't playing politics. Am I right?
Well, at least thus far, when it comes to the vaccine makers themselves, Eric, they have all gotten together and been very forceful, very publicly, that they will not release a vaccine unless it's proven safe and effective. So I think that's very good news for all of Americans. You know, I think there's very encouraging data. The data are very early, but there are large ongoing clinical trials of tens of thousands of people that are getting the vaccine. That, once you look at tens of thousands of people, that should give us a very good idea of whether or not, number one, the vaccine is safe, and number two, of course, whether or not it's effective. So I actually do think at the end of the day, the scientific process will win.
Doc, we'll be going into a season where we have, competing flus and epidemics and pandemics. What do they call it? The twindemic coming. How do we navigate this as households?
Yeah, Eric, we are entering a challenging time, as we've discussed on your program for months, that we knew that flu season would be starting and that we would enter flu season with no coronavirus vaccine. So a couple of things here. First of all, even if everything goes really well with the coronavirus COVID-19 vaccines, the very best case scenario is that we would have a vaccine available late this year, but very limited supply that would go to healthcare workers and other high-risk populations. And CDC director earlier today said we wouldn't have be ready to even start vaccinating the broad population until mid next year. And that's the very best case scenario.
So docs, a lot of these symptoms mirror each other, COVID and the flu. So what's the recommendation to a parent who has, or a person who's coming down with symptoms, whether it's fever or nausea, whatever? I mean, you could feel like you have the flu, but now you may be exposed to coronavirus.
Well, Eric, you hit the nail on the head. The signs and symptoms of influenza illness, as well as COVID-19, are very overlapping and very similar. And based upon your sort of clinical, how you're feeling, you really can't tell. But there are a couple of things that we are already doing, and I know you do, which is wear a mask, and which decreases not only transmission of coronavirus, but also other respiratory pathogens, including influenza. And secondly, you can get a flu vaccination. So that is very effective in covering the strains of the flu that are circulating. So unless you have a reason not to, everyone should go out there and get a flu vaccination now so that you can decrease your risk of at least getting influenza while we await the coronavirus vaccine.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. We may actually have a better flu season because pretty much everyone's wearing a mask.
Yeah, that's actually been seen in the prior flu season, Eric, is that once people started wearing masks, we saw a reduction in the transmission of colds and flus because they're transmitted in a similar fashion.
All right, we're going to leave right there. Dr. Dina Grayson, always good to have you. See you again soon.
Thanks for having me, Eric.
Remember to set your DVR so you never miss an episode of America This Week, United We Stand. Go to facebook.com/America Bowling, all one word, to find out when we air in your city. We've got a complete list of cities at the top of the page. Also, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. So if you missed the show or want to rewatch an interview, you can see them all right there.
United we stand, we never fall. This perilous fight, it takes one and all. Everyone stands, American strong. Strength by one equals strength by all. American values, American pride. Your neighbor needs you, each person, each time.
We stand America.
United we stand.
We stand America.
United we stand.
Thanks again for joining me for another great episode of America This Week, United We Stand. As fall weather creeps in on the East Coast, we wanted to share a fun summer moment. Check out this video of a water skier getting a surprise visit. Those dolphins just wanted in on the fun. Thanks to Joe LaRosa for sharing this video with one of our Sinclair stations. Have a great night, everybody.